drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Felsted in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Hello and a very big warm welcome to the Pastures Inquiry Sunday Sermon, where I'm with a very distinguished guest this evening, along with my two cohorts. Chris, good evening, Chris. Good evening, John. Good of you. And certainly a warm welcome to Icy Gerard, coming back for a second time for some more Chewing the Fat. Gerard, welcome.
Yeah, good to be back, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been on a stag do, I believe.
Yeah, rough couple of days. But I drank to a rating of about 98, so it wasn't too bad. No, wasn't too bad.
Yeah, just below listed class.
Yeah, just below. That would sum it up. Yeah. Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Okay. Right.
Please 131 on the snuff.
yeah. The liver's on its way out, but we'll go as long as we can. Looking at Saturday's review, then obviously we're just going to go look at the Haydock, Lancashire Oaks, and the Eclipse. We'll go Haydock first. Obviously, massive controversy around the Lancashire Oaks, where for some reason that I can't work out. I'm not saying that you chaps can't. Why poor old Rab ended up with 5 days and bent Jim none.
Can I go first here?
Yeah.
You're not going to like this. The stewards got that perfectly correct.
Okay.
The new phenomenon now on Twitter was still photo shrouds. So they're all showing the still photo and getting out measuring tapes and saying, "Oh, look, the gap is there." But when you watch the head-on live, like there's 3/4 of a gap there for like less than a second. Now, fair enough, someone like Tom Marcan would just bang, he'd go through that gap. But like Rab Havlin is a coward. So he's not good enough to take that gap. I mean, she's clearly the best horse in the race, but the gap just wasn't there. So the stewards are right. 5 days. I don't understand how people are taking the view that he didn't deserve a ban. He's clearly in breach of the rules.
Okay, no, that is interesting. Some like I say, some say one way, some say the other. John, thoughts?
I thought he was an arsehole for going for the gap. He had enough arse under him, as he showed subsequently. He could have gone round by fucking Aintree, couldn't he, really?
Yeah.
And still won. He didn't need to go for the fucking hero route. I mean, I think it's debatable whether there was ever a gap there, but he was an arsehole for going up that gap. And it's probably livened up Towser and Slim a bit, because I noticed he's changed his fucking tune, hasn't he, over whether Frankie's coming back or not. He's probably had a look at the nasty weather outside and thought, well, I need a bigger coat, if you know what I mean.
I mean, thing for me, I saw it differently at the time. Probably have to go and watch it back again, but I genuinely thought that the gap was big enough, and Jim was deliberately closing it. Garrett, is that Jim's right to close it?
But Jim Crowley's 100% allowed to do that. Yeah. And the thing is as well, that's how jockeys ride. They never ride on the rail. They'll ride just slightly off it to tempt you to come up the inside. And if you come up the inside, they'll close you off. I mean, they do that in Ireland all the time. In Ireland, you cannot come up the inside, or you'll be put through the rail the next day. Yeah, that's just an unwritten rule. Like you don't challenge up the inside. So yeah. Jim Crowley leaves that gap there to tempt Havlin to come up it, and then he's entitled to close the door there.
Yeah, no, right, okay, no, I love the differing view. Garrett no doubt thinks that I should put my stewards models in the bin. And
no, I don't mind that. I don't mind the opposite opinion, but I don't agree with people showing a still frame and saying, "Oh God, look, the gap is there." This happens live. It's less than a split second. So I just think that's the wrong way to analyse it, to say Rab Havlin wasn't in the wrong when he isn't breaching the rules. He's gone for a gap that wasn't there.
Yeah. No, good stuff. Okay, so obviously the winner Free Wind looks a very good filly.
She's a tool, isn't she?
Yeah, she's really progressing at a high rate of knots, and it was very impressive in the end. I was surprised. I think I looked on Betfair. I think she only went 12-1 in running, which was, I thought, astonishing because
The
after
horse
that
stopped dead, yeah.
it stopped dead in that, it was quite tacky ground. To then come back and do that was quite. I thought she'd gone much bigger, but there we go. They were right. Okay, across to Sandown then, the Eclipse, which Gerard, I know you liked Bay Bridge beforehand, and yeah, I did as well. I was impressed by Sandown when the sectional times backed it up in terms of the quality of performance that it looked, and I just felt that he was possibly the one to beat. The value bet was Mishriff. I backed Mishriff myself and was slitting my wrist. What's everyone's sort of take on the Eclipse? The sectional times don't reveal anything other than it was evenly run, so no disadvantage to anybody really. It was probably the best horse wins on the day. How did we see the Eclipse? Is it eventually a substandard Eclipse?
I don't think it's a super Eclipse by any stretch. I think you can always say that when they're finishing a bit of a hype, can't you? I mean, had years like when that Compton thing of Butler's won and Faithful Son was close up and horses like that. I'm not saying it was as bad as that, but they haven't exactly strung themselves out, have they? I don't know. Mishriff looked the one to take out the race, didn't it? Unlucky finishing best.
It was kind of just unfortunate, I suppose, that the Bay Bridge and Alencar, that when they were coming back, they just went on top of all, the horses that were challenging, wasn't it? So it was a bit of a mess that way.
Yeah. And I think I tend to concur with what they said about Bay Bridge. I think it came too soon for him. He's not been getting warm. He was getting warm down the neck down at the start, and I think it's just come on him a bit quick because it's all right, these easy 3-year-old seasons and building them up to be crackerjack 4-year-olds, but there was something similar happened with Opera House. He had a late 3-year-old campaign and everybody thought it was going to carry on before him at 4, and it wasn't until he hit 5 that he actually started fulfilling all the promise. And I think sometimes if they do have an easy 3-year-old season like this fella had, they still need a bit of seasoning on him, and I think two sharp races like this, he's probably knocked him back away a bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be making too many excuses for him, but he did look like he hated the ground.
Yeah, he wants some dig for me. I definitely think that. I thought that before the race. That was the one worry. Probably Bar Stewart's to blame because our interactions with
Andrew, Stop watering. Cheers, lads. Yeah, thanks.
It's cost you your bet, Gareth. Because obviously the surprising thing for me, he started the 2-day meeting on 7.3, which he's not done for the past 2 seasons. He's normally around 6.97, and then on the Eclipse Day 7.7, which is the fastest in 2 seasons Sandown's raced on. And it's as if maybe Clarks are like punters in a way. You kind of sometimes get into your own rut and your own sort of ways, and I because the media don't question Clarks, they have them on for interviews, but they don't like criticise them. They never say, well, unless horses slip up, they don't start sort of saying, oh well, don't you think you should have just not put as much on? And I think because we actually said that, I genuinely believe it gets in people's psyche, and maybe Cooper's thinking, maybe I am putting too much on.
Well, middle of the summer, good to form Group 1. I mean, that's what we want to see, isn't it?
It is. And and credit to him. That's the benchmark. What he should look on now. I know he's an experienced Clark. He's done it for years, and I'm not. I'm critical, but I'm not saying he's a bad Clark in terms of what he's done over time. But I think maybe Clarks in general have got in a rut for just sticking too much on. And that, like, maybe trainers put that pressure on, like you say, a superstar's due to run that wants good to soft, and so they're ringing the Clark up on Thursday and saying, I hope you're putting plenty on. It's that kind of pressure that probably we're not privy to as punters. We're just sat there waiting, thinking, well, it'd be good. There's no rain forecast, so it'd be good to firm on Saturday, and then the old turn.
Do you know what? And I know you were tweeting about it, but do you remember the clip? with the Curragh for the Derby, the ground for the Derby, and the clerk's basically gone on and admitted he's made a bollocks of it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I saw you retweeted that, so I watched video.
But I don't know about you, but I didn't have a bet the 3 days at the Curragh because I just wasn't happy. I just wasn't happy with what the ground was going to be. I mean, that's what's happening though, isn't it? It's putting punters off. Like for to not have a bet on Derby weekend is a bit mental, isn't it?
It is.
But it's because of the ground. It's just I'm just not happy to bet when they're watering like that and you just have no idea what the ground is.
It is, and especially like with the forecast, which was, I was looking at various different forecasts, and it said anywhere between, some said as much as 14 mils over the weekend, some were saying 6 mils, and you just don't know what you're going to get, and then it kind of ends up a bit loose, and then you think, bloody hell. And it's the same as punters. Like you say, all we want is a fair crack of the whip to just say, right, well, we can see the weather forecast. It's sunny on Friday, it's sunny on Saturday, so it should be good to firm. And we've got the other culprit we've got in the UK at the moment is Michael Prosser, who seems to want to water the shit out of the July course. I've no idea why. And again, we've had the racing line back at Sandown for 2 days, which was refreshing to see. They're not spread 20 wide, which you'll see on the July course, probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This is why I'm not even going to do a preview. I'm not even going to preview it in terms of because I'm like John. I hate the meeting in terms of, you'll get one on the stands rail in 20 runner races, one on the far side, a group in the middle, because they're all looking for that edge, that best ground. And inevitably, there's always some kind of bias there at some point during the meet. So it's because he sticks too much on, and I'm sick of these idiots. But maybe with the Australian being there, is it? It's not Nature Strip, is it the other one? The other Australians.
Whatever the call is.
Oh yeah, sorry, that one. Yeah, sorry, that the one in Reddit, the one that was desperate at Ascot. If that's running there, they're not going to want to run on slop. Hopefully, they'll not go crackers and not spoil it like he usually does. Okay, so we shall move on from reviews. Oh, just one before we do. Did you see the Grand Prix St. Cloud today?
Yeah.
Thoughts on Hurricane Lane? Rotten, weren't it? I mean, it was a toughish trip. I thought it was a shit ride. It was wide round the bends, sort of giving away a bit of ground. But even with that taken in, it was pretty poor. Alpinista winning, I think shows the level of that race. But yeah, Hurricane.
Won't see it again, will you? After that,
might be injured, might get an injury, and then possibly be shuttled to be a jump sire maybe or something like that.
They can't risk another one of them, can they?
Not really, because the 3-year-old, I mean, with Native Trail, I know Native Trail possibly didn't stay the mile and a quarter. I know it's like harsh to say he didn't get beat far in the Eclipse, but that Guineas form isn't exactly working out. Caribus should have got thrashed in the St James's Palace by Maljoon. And My Prospero had a tougher trip as well out wide. You wouldn't back Caribus to beat My Prospero or Maljoon if they met again. Native Trail obviously beat by Caribus in the Guineas, so it's not looking good, is it?
He did run a bit better than I thought he'd run. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
It's just hard to know what to do with him now, isn't it?
It is, because at the mile, like at the Curragh, he came off it, and it was sort of it looked like a laboured performance, and everyone's saying, well, possibly he does need a mile and a quarter, but then obviously he's come up short against if you take Mishriff out of it, Vedeni, the 3-year-olds beat him fair and square and done it nicely.
You wouldn't be convinced. You wouldn't be convinced that he wants 10 furlongs, though, would you? From yesterday?
No.
I think that's the kind of problem. Though. So where do you go next with him? Is the problem?
I think you try and find a softish sort of Group 1 if you can in France. Maybe is it the what's the one in August? Is it not the Malois, the other one? I'm trying to think.
Is that the 7 furlong one?
Yeah, 7 furlong would be no good, will it? 7.5 furlong, is it Jack Malois? Or is it the 7 furlong? I'm not sure. John, help me out here. What's the French Group 1 that's
over? That's the 7 furlong, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be no good. That possibly could be Kariba's, to be honest. I mean,
he's been busy enough anyway, wouldn't it? He's to knock him on the head till he hurt him and go for the foray or something like that.
Yeah. Just going forward, also, just looking forward to Goodwood later on. Obviously, the talk about Bailly turning up there in the Sussex. It'd be interesting if Goodwood got soft ground, because the shirt, for me, has got one that would give it a race. Rizwari, I think, that won at Haydock in the slop. Everything went wrong at Haydock. Didn't do it right. It showed an immense turn of foot to just power clear. That, I think, looks top class, but it's got to have soft. It's no good. It will not run on good to firm ground. Even it needs the soup. So it'd be interesting if their inexperienced clerk of the course sticks plenty on, and then Goodwood gets some thunderstorms.
Well, if you like anything on soft ground for Goodwood, you just want to be doubling it with Trushan, don't you?
You do, yeah, exactly that. Yeah, that's good. Good punting advice. So it's like you say, Goodwood do put plenty on, John, don't they? As a rule.
Well, I mean, Neil Clark or not, I mean, Seamus still has his hands up their ass working the controls.
It's like one of them Atari joysticks, isn't it? You know? Yeah, good stuff. Okay, we'll move on to Graham North's question that we didn't get to last week was the £1.6 million racing promotion done by the Jockey Club. Jermaine Janus heading that, promoting the sport to youngsters. Telling all the youngsters how wonderful it is, etc., etc. What's folks' thoughts on spending like 1.6 million doing that? Is it a good idea, a bad idea?
I'm so fucking sick of racing, spending money on oily little nerks like Rod Strait, who's had this fucking in to the VHA for about 12 years now. Nobody's ever monitored any success or failure he's ever had, but they just continue to chuck money at his project willy-nilly. And I mean, no, the state of the game tells you how successful it's been, but everything he does is unquantifiable. And the VHA just say, well, chuck stuff at him, don't they? Usually greenbacks. Oh, well.
I mean, do we think that the 1.6 million could have been possibly redistributed amongst Jockey Club? Obviously, it's the Jockey Club that's spending the money, so it has to probably go with Jockey Club racecourses. But at least spend it on cheaper admission, better facilities, whatever, like better food. We've seen the standards of food at some tracks. And you just see how Ireland do it, and it's amazing in the provinces in Ireland how much better they are when they organise, like Bellewstown, they organise a meeting like Tremor, £15 entry, I believe, today, or €15, sorry, and it's that and this it's done properly. This is what I'm saying. If you do it properly, you'll get punters turning up. You bring them back. And I go back to what James Lovell said when he said about Instagram, right? Instagram does the marketing for the tracks. Tracks don't need to market, because if the youngsters start posting on Instagram, like the day out, the experience, blah, 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 that's it. It's done, because that then circulates amongst their friends and their friends and their friends and their friends, and they say, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Never thought about going to Tremor on a Sunday or whatever." That's the kind of thing that I think is more important than just the monetary investment.
Yeah, I think Ireland, there's a bit of a culture with it. Like Killarney's coming up on the 11th for it's on during the week, and like there'll be very, very good crowds at that.
Yeah. I mean, and
it's not exactly great racing. You know what I mean? It's just like Bellewstown as well. I mean, you're not going to see great racing there, but the punters or people just love going for the day out.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I suppose it's different in Ireland in that you've got a lot of people genuinely interested in racing. Problem the UK's got is that there's people that are more interested in a day out rather than the actual horse racing. Whereas there's a lot in Ireland that want to see the horse racing.
To be fair, that's the feeling that the VHA marketing generates, isn't it? You know, there's a lot of people now who feel excluded from racing because of how the BHA market is. You know, the betting people and people that followed the sport for years, loads of them now feel like they're out of place on a race course because they wear socks and they're not going for a big steak afterwards. You know.
Gary, what's it like in Ireland? Do they wear socks?
No, and they're all doing that fucking Peaky Blinders get up as well, which is just soul destroying.
God.
Yeah, well, it's a 1.6 million promotion from the Jockey Club there. Don't know how that'll go, but there we go.
Well, I think
Cosmetic purposes, isn't it? Just be seen to be doing something.
it's
Yeah.
the equivalent of buying yourself a pint mug so you can sit at the dining table and rather than get up to go to the toilet halfway through, you can piss in yourself.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I do think the tracks get it long. I mean, like you've got Comiscus, he's moaning about like no ATMs and stuff like that. You know, for everyone still wants to bet in cash. Everyone loves that cash feeling, and they do. When you go racing, you know, the general public want to stick. You know, like sometimes after a bit of champers or whatever, bit of beer. You know, it's they want 20 or 50 quid on one, and it's like, oh, you know, the thrill of getting paid out in cash. You know, it's you can't beat that feeling, and that's me betting in digital numbers on a screen for the last God knows how long. You cannot beat that feeling in being paid out in cash. It's still very underrated and should not disappear from race courses.
It's that long since I had my hands around a nice wad of nuts. I couldn't tell it from Kylie's flange.
But if I was to be harsh, I would say, you know, go to the fucking ATM before you go to the race course. It's not hard, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but you right. The thing is, and you see these bookie blogs now popping up all over Twitter. I get why they're doing it. They want to promote the betting ring and stuff, and it's good. It's good for the game. I like to see it on Twitter. I like to see bookies doing the brains and doing blogs also doing it. But the general thing is, the general public are just fucking useless. They get to the front of the queue. They don't know what they're backing. What do you? They even say to like the book, "What do you fancy?" Yeah, it's like, I mean, this is most of the general public. Oh, what shall I bet? You know, this is the thing. So you're asking the general public to actually think for themselves and think, you know what, I'm gonna fucking draw 100 out of cash point and fucking have some bets with some bookmakers. Half of them just. No, it's a general society problem. Gone to the. I've read a Fallon Racing Post article today, and from Lee, I think Mottershead did it, and I'm not right happy with it really because kind of the jury found them not guilty. Right, for that trial. But Fallon obviously is going to say, it's obvious, isn't it? I am not guilty. Of course he was fucking guilty. You know, you saw Ballinger Ridge, what happened. The evidence mounted up against them. The fact was, though, the prosecution was so inept, you know, and obviously they got somebody from Australia that then admitted he hadn't ever watched British racing, things like that, you know, or like studied British racing closely. So all of a sudden, then your prosecution just starts to fall apart. The case hadn't fell apart because it wasn't a decent case. It fell apart because of the BHA and dragging somebody in from Australia to do the trial. So for Fallon, I mean, for Mottershead to probably sit there and gush at Fallon, it was quite a gushing interview. I thought it was quite nauseating. I just think we all know they were all guilty. We all know what happened. We saw it with our eyes. We saw the evidence as well. The evidence was presented, and it was pretty damning. But obviously they couldn't get it over the line, which is the British justice system. So I found that quite annoying. Thoughts on that? Do you remember them times, Chris? Do you remember them times when sort of like Fallon was in the limelight for all this?
Well, yeah, and without sort of wanting to get sued, as you probably know, I have some special insight into that particular debacle. And what I would say is I completely agree with everything you've said. The guy allegedly was a double agent. really, and not a very nice chap. And yeah, he sort of played everybody against each other, and that's all I'm prepared to say publicly. But yeah, there's nothing I disagree with what you just said. So the fact that Motta said sort of gushing is a bit rich, isn't it? I mean, Christ.
Yeah, it was an article sort of like, I would say, promoting Fallon, if you like, rather than sort of like, I don't know, I didn't find the balance right. And as I said, I'm only going on the evidence that was presented in the case. The evidence was damning, pretty damning. It fell apart at the last minute. They had to quash the case because the prosecution got embarrassed by the barristers on the other side by saying, well, you've already admitted you don't watch UK racing, so what are you doing here?
It was the City of London. Jockey Club will say at the time, well, we just put the intelligence and evidence that we've gathered in front of the prosecuting authorities. So City of London police were hopelessly out of their depth in all aspects of that case. And that's why I think they've been sort of subsequently very chary about sort of taking these sorts of cases forward, which is why we haven't seen anything similar since, because they got their fingers burned. It cost them loads of money. But that's the problem. They didn't know the case that they were putting forward. They didn't understand the nuances. The experts they got didn't understand British racing. And of course, I think from memory, could be wrong, but I think Fallon had John Kelsey Fry QC as his barrister, and of course he's a sort of an owner of some longevity, so knows the game inside out. So they were completely outmatched, and Fallon walks away an innocent man, but that's in quotes. But look, he hasn't been convicted, so he didn't commit the crime. Yeah, there are more nuances involved in this particular case.
Do you know the part of the story where they drive? I don't know, was it they drive to Newmarket with a baseball bat?
Yeah.
The guy that was driving, right? He was actually head of trading in Ireland for Ladbrokes. I actually worked with him.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting people I ever met in betting in my life. He used to have 4 mobile phones on the desk, and I don't know what was going on, but he was some character.
Well, yeah, the other people in that car, you wouldn't want them fucking after you. Put it that way.
No.
And it wasn't just a baseball bat as well. But
but I think at the time I was glad he was cleared of it at the time, because they made such a disaster of the case, didn't they? And it was completely on them.
Yeah, totally. The justice system is, it's incumbent on the prosecution to prove their case beyond reasonable.
Yeah. And things have actually got worse now, because we still haven't heard anything about that claiming race. Do you remember at the start of COVID in Dundalk, which was the biggest disgrace of all time?
Yeah,
and we've heard nothing about that since.
Was that Dennis Hogan when he had about
allegedly?
Yeah, he got so many. Was it the second favourite that won, and the favourite was sort of tailed?
I think the favourite was like £19 clear on ratings or something, and he just managed to miss the kick, which was unfortunate.
Well, table tennis must have known what was coming. He's thinking, well, if we're 3 months no racing, we need some readies. We've got to have some fun during this.
The funny thing about that was that Twitter absolutely exploded after that race. I never saw a reaction like it. I mean, everyone could see it. It wasn't just one of these where you hear, oh, that race was a bit dodgy. This was just plain as day. It was so obvious.
Yeah, no, that was good.
They don't run trials, though. Anything can happen in racing. We shouldn't draw.
Yeah, this is what it's all about.
They're not machines,
Oh, this horse has had leg trouble. You could just imagine if they'd have managed to get like Dennis on an interview. This horse, let me tell you about this horse. This horse has had so much leg trouble. Yeah. Anyone backing this horse is an idiot. And then next time out it's like 5-4 into 8-11, and it's it wins by 6 hard held.
Like old Don Cantillon used to run them all back up. Like, oh, I fucking cripple this horse. Look at it, into the fucking parade ring. Yeah. All of that.
What was that one that tried to break I think it was the Southwell record, and he kept telling everyone in sellers and claimers, glass legs, You know, you don't want to be claiming this. It's glass legs, like you said, bandaged on all fours.
And that particular horse, I can't remember the name now, was a prolific winner for Paul Howling. Do you remember that particular? I can't remember the name now. And there is a connection with some of the protagonists of the Fallon debacle tangent.
Right.
The owners of that particular horse prior to going to Mr. Cancelin were quite closely enmeshed with some of the puppet masters of that particular horse, of that particular debacle. So, yeah, it all comes full circle, doesn't it? Strange.
Don Cantillon and his close associate at Tom Jones's, Bryn Walker.
Yeah.
They must have been the world's worst, too, for having horses cast in the box the night before when they were on an overnight stop before running at 4 to 5 in Northern Maidens.
Yes.
You've got this thing of Andans coming up to Redcar that's cost 1.6 million. It's 4 to 5. And the next thing, it's all over the course on race day, but it was cast in its box all night.
Yeah. He's a funny old character.
7 to 4, thank you very much.
Yeah.
He loves a bet as well, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He does. I had a leg-in one with Cantillon years ago, and can't remember. We ran it somewhere at Epsom. We had Johnny Murter on in a claimer, and it's
just to be sure, yeah.
Mid-division or something. I can't even remember. It was so long ago. And Murter comes back and says to Cantillon, maybe this needs further, Don. And he said, "Fuck off." And that was it. That was the feedback to the jockey. Fuck off. That was it. I was expecting Murter to come back and say, well, this, that, and the other. He said, maybe it needs a bit further. Fuck off. That was it. That was all he said. He said, tell him fucking nothing. So that was him. He's a funny old character, funny guy.
Good stuff. Right, going on back to the delay of the Gambling Act. Jacob Rees-Mogg, a good friend of John's, likes to delay the white paper on grounds of sort of unfairness to punters. No one should be nanny state, this, that, and the other. What's everyone's views on the Gambling Act and what it should do? For example, Tony Calvin is a very firm believer in affordability checks. He thinks people should be checked for affordability to bet online. John, Gerard, Chris, what are your thoughts on affordability checks?
I don't have much of an opinion on it, to be honest. I mean, it just makes things harder. But I mean, if you want to get on, you're just going to do it, aren't you?
Yeah, find ways, so to speak. John, Chris?
No, I'm not a fan of it. Just assume we'll have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's right. I mean, Tony Calvin's sort of argument seems to be, well, if you've got nothing to hide, what's the problem? And that's a much wider point, isn't it, about sort of CCTV in public. Remember a few years ago, there was a sort of push towards national identity cards. Well, why wouldn't you want one if you've got nothing to hide? And I think it's a much bigger argument. But we're talking about having a bet, aren't we? We're not talking about, I don't know, buying a house or a business. We're talking about having a bet. So I think, the Tories are meant to be, as we said on last
free market, yeah.
Free market, libertarian, small government, do what you want. And they're the last people you would expect to be sort of pushing this. And I think it's completely against what the Tories stood for. And as we said last week, they don't stand for really anything at the minute other than their own self-enrichment.
Yeah, I don't see an upside for the racing industry because whatever your views on it, I do concede that some people do suffer bad gambling harm, but this is the fault of the operators. This isn't the fault of punters. This isn't the fault of us sat here. This is the fault of operators that have let people get into this position and encouraged.
There is a culture, and you're right. There are some horror stories, real horror stories, where people have gone in way above their sort of heads and sort of lost everything. But ultimately, we live in a society where kind of personal responsibility is now secondary, isn't it? It's sort of always someone else's fault, and we kind of fetishize victimhood. There's so many Twitter accounts where people, quite happy to sort of admit the most egregious, examples of poor behaviour or bad judgment, because it's kind of almost cool to be a victim now. And I think the pendulum's swung the wrong way, really.
Do you remember the article? Maybe it was The Guardian now or something, but there was like,
20 stories from people who'd like done it all in,
Yeah.
and it was like it was just like you're really going like then they're all kind of like, oh, it's the bookmaker's fault. I've done in 57,000, on roulette. It's like, geez, like fucking it's your fault, like like you said, personal responsibility. But we're supposed to feel sorry for these people, I mean, I don't know.
There is personal responsibility, but I mean, I've on my studies on affordability and stuff, and I've done pods on it, and I've talked to people from both sides of the fence. In fact, one of them, I've developed a new friend, if you like, a personal friend through this. Friend, yeah, I ain't got many, and he's basically lost his family, he's lost his business, and he's a really likable chap. And I'm not, like I say, I can't name him, but he has gone through hell, and they did put him through hell. The operators, I'm not going to mention the operators either, but they said after he said, "I've had enough. Please stop. Sending me messages and stuff and mails." They were sending him things like, "Well, deposit $4,000, we'll give you 4 free," things like that, and then just to get him in the casino and on the slots, and that kind of practice was done, like regular.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's like, I would say one thing, that the culture did have to change.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I won't mention the firm, but I was in an office one day, and this guy had been, he'd been betting all night, and he was down 5 figures, and they were kind of sitting around and they were saying, yeah, he probably sold the house, or he probably got, inherited it. Like, they were just all like, they spent the day watching him do it all in, And I've seen other guys, seen a guy doing 50 grand in an hour, and stuff like that. And like at that time, it was just, you just shrugged your shoulders. That was it. No one cared. So that it did have to change. The culture did have to change, but maybe now it's gone to the other extreme, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what we're seeing now is, when, like you said, when the pendulum swings the other way, a genuine folk that are then subject to these invasive checks and account suspensions until they produce this data, and people that have probably bet for a long time. I've had lots of people contact me that are just ordinary punters. One today, actually, only bets in £5 and £10, and he's been restricted to £100 a month, because I think he said I've won the last month.
Do you know the firm?
I don't actually. He sent me the he didn't include the header. He just included the message he got, and and it'd be down to £100 a month.
Most of them now are, if you're under 25, it's max £500 a month. I mean, that's kind of fair enough, isn't it? I mean, that affects professional punters harvesting accounts. That's all that affects.
That's a fair point. I mean, for bookmakers listening on this podcast also, probably going mad and saying this is one-sided, there is that also, that literally professional punters for years took advantage.
Yeah, they'll destroy you. But from what I can tell, most firms now, they'll leave you deposit £1,500 basically before they start asking for wage slips or anything like that. So I mean, you just have to be, when you open a new account now, you just have to be aware of that, and just try and build up the balance. You can't be just lobbing in 10 grand like you could probably only like a couple of years ago, or even last year. Just, I mean, the game has changed that way, but I mean, is it really affecting small punters? I wonder.
Well, someone told me within the industry also that it's only affecting probably will affect about 5% of punters.
99% of them are professional punters.
Yeah, and of that 5%, like you've just said, the majority are full-time players. So yeah, I mean, look, and I'm not championing our Garrett. We know what we do, and like you say, we have to get on with it. But I think only thing I'm concerned for also is Big Corp being overzealous with this and kind of just restricting people that shouldn't be restricted, and that's going to affect the betting levy, which is then going to affect prize money, and then we're heading down the ground route.
To be honest, it's all just automated now. All stake factoring is just automated. So whatever their thresholds are, if you back X amount of movers or whatever, like you just get automatically stake factored. There's not really much there's not really as much people going through accounts like it used to be. It's just automated.
Can you see a revival like on course? Can we see sort of revival of on course players that so like people like myself, say it happens to me, let's say, I don't know, somewhat like Betfair Exchange, which that's my main thing. They've contacted me twice in the last year when I've been depositing. If that finished for me and that there was no way back, do you think the on course market could revive again?
I can't see it myself. No, I just can't see it, because like all those bookmakers, fair enough, like they love a good moan on Twitter, but like if guys are coming on course beating them, I mean, how what's going to happen then? It's kind of be careful what you wish for, isn't it?
Didn't think of it like that. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, they want the soft money. Let's not pretend that they want to be laying chunks of sharp money on course. They don't. They're all fishing for whales. That's what they're all at. That's why they're promoting themselves on Twitter, is because like they're basically all going down the private WhatsApp layers route, and they're just looking for a victim. Basically, they're basically doing what bookmakers were doing 5 years ago. Look for a whale and let him deposit and lose as much as he likes. So yeah, I don't have much compassion for bookmakers on course, to be honest.
Well, it's like Ben Keith in a way. Ben Keith admits he plays the man.
He's completely open about it. Yeah, he's completely transparent about what he does.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's not interested in odds compile. He's not bothered.
And to be fair, Jeff Banks as well. Deposit and lose. I always found that funny.
Yeah, Banks. Well,
yeah, I know. But I just thought that at least he was open about it. Like, just deposit your money and lose to me, please.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's Jeffrey. Jeff wants to come back on the show soon. Don't know what to talk about, but we'll try and get Jeff back. Right, going on to a topic close to my heart. So, back punting now. Let's talk about punting. Punters would love to hear about this. And this year, I'm particularly having a bad year. It's one of my. I would say it's one of my worst from memory. Really, I'm like you, Garrett. I don't keep strict records, but I do know this year. Since January the 1st, I'm winning £11,000. The problem with that is it doesn't even cover probably a quarter of my eckies, and I'm starting. You do things start creeping in. You get a lot of bad luck. You get bad beats. You sometimes you just can't seem to nail a winner.
Can I ask you why your expenses are so high?
Well, mainly owning racehorses, and it's yeah, and gin, yeah, gin. I mean, I'm probably on about, I don't know. I mean, it's not that expensive gin, is it? But when you're on sort of 2.5 litres a week, 3 litres a week, there's that. Obviously, I give money to my children that are in university. Lots of expenses.
3 litres of gin normally means good Twitter content for me.
Yeah, exactly. There's, usually there's the odd spat. I can remember falling out with Peter Michael Racing.
Well, that's easy to do now. To be fair, that's very easy. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, he doesn't like me. But that was gin fueled. But yeah, it's often some good posts. But yeah, just punting really. I mean, are we approaching the end game in certain things? Obviously, I look at Betfair and the liquidity is very low for what I do. I bet in running piddle about on the pre-race markets. I think I've found it difficult this year, and I try and analyse myself. Am I doing things wrong? What's your year been like so far, Garrett?
It's actually been quite good, but the problem is that like if I win $4,000, you can be sure my partner will find a way to spend 5. Like, so 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 you're always kind of on the line. So even like I don't know what I'm winning in a year, but whatever the figure is anyway, it's you know what I mean. It's long since spent. It just gets spent. It just gets dragged in. Like, it's great when you're in your 20s. It's very easy to spin up a very big tank. Because well, what your what's your expenses in life. But when when you have kids and stuff, it's just a different game. You're just grinding to get a wage, and to get that extra, a couple of grand every month or every couple of months, and then just to basically to raise your quality of life, isn't it? I mean, get it and spend it. I mean, we'll be dead long enough, won't we?
I think that's it. I mean, I'm one of the failures of the pro punting world in that I'm like, I just spend ridiculously. I've led a life of just buying lots of horses, doing things, going on holidays, doing everything bar doing it properly, which is, you're supposed to like look after your money, put it away, lead a boring life until you're ready to retire, and then laugh at your exploits. But I would say I've probably enjoyed too much of it, if you know what I mean.
Like the game just has, obviously it's always changing and whatever, but like I still think that you punt away whatever, but you definitely I know I'm a bit of a broken record of this, but you just have to be doing multiples, because when you click one of them, that solves all problems. So once you get one of them up, you're just not giving it back. So that's kind of that. It's just like in terms of betting strategy, like one of my favorite things to do is to try to run a lot of money into something that I fancy, will say, in a couple of months' time. So, just doing small doubles here and there, it doesn't have to be massive money. All of a sudden, then you've got this thing for $6,000, $7,000. That's how you can have a touch. I'm not really in for the day-to-day grind anymore. I'm looking for projects. Look for something far off, and just try and run as much money into it as you can. And as well, like bookmakers will lay these bets, like they'll snap them off you. I mean, they just look muggish, and you end up with some really nice positions, and that'll make or break your year. Then landing one of them.
I think it's really good. You touched on this earlier in the show as well about Trushan, for example.
Well, let's take that as an example, right? So, I'm not going to say whether I fancy Trushan or not in the race, because it's possible I don't. But let's say you do fancy the horse. At the moment, they basically bet 3-1, 3-1, or 11-4, 11-4. There's absolutely no way, I think in my head, that those two horses at the top of the market can meet in that race. One of them will run, one of them won't run, depending on the ground. So if you fancy Trushan on soft ground, well, it's quite possible he can go off 5-4 in that race. It's quite possible. I mean, Stradivarius is a bust. He's finished. If you think there's a good chance it'll come up soft and Goodwood, well, you want to be just doubling everything into him. And if he gets down today, you're going to have a absolute massive edge on your money. So, things like that. But I mean, like I said, though, I'm not actually backing Trushan, so I don't want to be quoted on this in July when he.
No. It was just used as like an example.
Yeah, it's an example, but it's an example of where you could like, it's a grade A event. You could run a lot of money into him if you wanted to, if you fancy the horse, and you could end up with a massive position if it did come up soft ground. So that's an example of something that I would be looking for.
Yeah, it's good advice for punters. It's like you say, the days when if you fancy 4 on a Saturday, if you play 4 singles, and you'll make a profit or one wins, but like you say, you've always got to have your mind on that little acca. Because I think that's, like you said, that's how you propel yourself. That's how you.
Yeah, exactly.
As a young bettor.
Yeah, because when you people seem to think that multiples are really hard. It's just, I mean, if you're doing enough of them, you're gonna click. So, once you're keeping the stakes reasonable and within your within your staking range, I think they're vital if you want to make a proper profit on here.
No, good stuff. Chris, what's your punting exploits in life? Is it back in losers?
Oh yeah, almost exclusively. Bad. the kind of the pros will say, well, luck evens out. You're only remembering the bad beats, and you're suffering from really bias. But I do think, with no real evidence other than anecdotal, I think luck beats everything. Years ago, there was a really good independent shop somewhere in Surrey that had a really high turnover. So lots of well-heeled people, some of whom own racehorses, coming in with bets from trainers, etc. And there was a guy there who had a business. I think it was a stonemasons or something. Always had bundles and bundles of money on him. Absolutely terrible gambler, clueless, didn't know the back end from the front, regularly used to do it on crazy stuff. So on paper, this is the guy you kind of want to take on because he doesn't know anything. The problem is every now and again, he would fluke something, right? So he would fluke a kind of a crazy acca, and he was doing sort of, tri-cast doubles and trebles at Bristol Dogs, etc. So the manager of that shop, being a man who had recently become divorced and was on his uppers, thought it'd be rather good to not to put these bets through the till. And so, every day this guy would come in with these crazy bets, etc., and the manager was trousering the stake, and life was good. New car, new clothes, until one day this geezer came in, had a crazy load of forecast doubles and trebles and dogs, etc., and copped for 300 grand. And of course, when he went into the shop, guess what? No manager, no fucking record of the bet. So ultimately, the manager was arrested. I think he did a bit of bird. The bookmaker paid the guy out. So, but the moral of the story is, this guy, 9 times out of 10, he'd do his money. But every so often, he used to land crazy bets which would push him clear. So overall, he was probably in profit. But if you looked at his sort of daily betting in isolation, he was a fucking idiot. But, he was just a lucky guy who bring these up and was probably a winning punter. And so I think some people just, have something about them that can get themselves out of the shit when they're down to the last tenner or fiver, and some people don't. And, he was incapable of grinding a profit, but as Geroyd said, he was, deuce doubles and trebles and crazy multiples with no thought, so he wouldn't be running money into a clever selection, but he would be copying. And overall, he was a winning punter. So I think there's a lot to be said about lucky people and unlucky people.
Yeah, I think you can be on a path in life sometimes, and you do get that. You get people that are luckier than others because that's the variance, isn't it? That's just a fact of life. For example, you could sit at a roulette table for 50,000 spins, and you could back red each time. And it's supposed to be sort of like, barring the zero, you should be 25,000 red, 25,000 black. We know it's not going to be 25,000 red, and we know it's going to be, it'd be something like, it could be 22,000 to 28. So therefore, that's your variance, and that's where some people then believe they're either lucky or unlucky. That's just how it is.
Very subjective, but in the long run, you're dead anyway, aren't you? And then there's no kind of
not enough time. Yeah,
100,000, 200,000 spins. Yeah, I suppose if you spun it infinitely, I guess what is it's not it's fine. It's not finite, is it? So yeah, I mean, and look, and punters are very good at picking out the bad beats, but fuck me, we've had millions of them this year.
But the most important thing, like in punting, I think I often say that there's two things in life you need good timing for. One is a snooker cue action, and the other is punting. Timing is absolutely everything.
Yeah.
It's just like the most random things can happen. I mean, I remember there last year, I went out for a walk, and it started to rain, so I went to a bookies, and I wouldn't normally have cash on me, and I would say I had 150 quid on me, and I'd done a couple of multis, and I clicked a few quid, but which was brilliant, but it's so random. There was a 90% chance I wouldn't have gone to the shop that day. It's just timing is just everything, and God, when your timing is out, it's a hard game, isn't it?
Yeah, it completely is, and you just seem to think everything goes against you.
And everything you don't back wins, and everything you back gets beat. I mean, it's we've all been there, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do think like for you, especially young punters or any listeners that are coming into the game, it literally is like that. It's very you can feel king of the world when things are going well. You think you're the best judge that's walked the earth. When you're shitting winners, and then the key is when things aren't going right. It's really hard sometimes. You'll sit there and you'll think, why is this happening? It's a constant reminder that the game, can eat you. It can, and you've got to stay with what you're doing. Maybe refine what you're doing. Maybe improve what you're doing. Analyze yourself. Rate your bets. Maybe go back instead of rate your stake. Rate your bets. Go back on the day. Look at your 6 bets you've had. Were those 6 bets good bets? How many bad bets were there?
I'd add something else as well that I think is really important. It applies to on-course bookmakers as well. But as a punter now, I think myself, you have to win at the big festivals. You have to win at Royal Ascot. You have to win at Cheltenham, because they're the biggest opportunities in the year. So you really have to be focused for those weeks, because if you're not getting money in Cheltenham and you're not getting money from Royal Ascot, I don't fancy you having a winning year. And I mean,
you're right about that. I've lost at both.
Yeah, that's it. And it's the same. It's the same for on-course bookmakers. Like when the crowds are there and you have the big meetings and the big festivals, you have to win that week, because you're not going to get it on a Thursday night down in Tipperary or a Monday night in Roscommon. You're going to get the money when the big days are on. So, but it's I think that's absolutely vital though. For punting now, is that like you really do need you need to bring your best stuff for Cheltenham and Ascot.
Good stuff, Garrett. I like it.
And stay away from those fucking extra place races. God almighty. What is wrong with punters with these extra places? They're just obsessed with, they're just obsessed with these, they're betting on all the wrong races, if that makes sense. Like, oh great, they're going 6 places, they're going to have a bet in the race. But if there wasn't 6 places, would you be even looking at the race? So I think people just get absolutely, they get so carried away with those races. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes punters make. Now I know the maths doesn't agree with me, but it's from my point of view, it's your strategy in betting. Is your biggest edge really just betting each way extra places? Because then I don't think you have an edge. I think you're a shit punter, to be honest.
Love that. I'm sure Nick Bradley would love to hear that, because Nick Bradley, the former math teacher, that Kimona, that's how he made his that's literally how he made his money. He was literally sending stacks of people around places.
Oh, in the London shops, was it?
Mathematically beating. Yeah, he mathematically just beating him.
But I'll say one thing though, that was quarter the odds, all those races.
Yeah. It was the days when it were quarter the odds first 6 or quarter the odds first
quarter first 5, quarter first 6, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I better throw in this caveat. Like if you are betting into those extra place races at a 50 odds, you actually have to beat the win price on Betfair to have a proper edge.
Yeah,
so if you're taking 10 to 1 each way, well, it really kind of needs to be going off 9.8 on the win market for you to have a proper to have had a proper bet. Yeah, that's my opinion anyway. That's my opinion on it.
No, I'd go with that. It's all about beating the odds. Okay, we'll come on to, before we go on to Jimmy Lindley, which is just a few horses to follow. Garrett, some stories you touched on the last show. Chris, what was it? Was it Patrick Veach?
It was. I think Patrick Veach was asked by Simon Knott whether he, how high up the sort of food chain he was in terms of success and punting, and I presume he meant exclusively horse racing. So I was just wondering, without naming any names, I mean, are you aware of punters other than Tony Bloom, I suppose, who's mainly sport-based, that are, massively more successful at horse racing than Patrick Veach? Because as an outsider, you think like he's at the apex of the pyramid, but Veach would say that he wasn't. Is that? I
would think that he would be like obviously I don't know what the man thinks, but I would assume he is pointing in the direction of bigger syndicates that are using, we'll say models. Like basically, we'll say, like I'm sure you've read all the stories about like Hong Kong,
Yes.
And on Australia betting into the tote. I'd imagine he'd be speaking about someone like that is, you know, betting into Betfair or something along those lines. But like I said, I can't speak for him, and I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking.
That's quite helpful insight. So it's effectively not sort of an individual, but it's rather perhaps a syndicate or group of individuals that are, you know, playing to bigger stakes.
Well, you do have to ask yourself one question, right? Who is driving Betfair? How many customers do you think is driving Betfair?
Good point.
I have a fair idea what the answer is. Yeah. It's less than 10.
Yeah,
a lot less than 10.
Wow.
So look, I have no idea. Like I actually have no idea who these people are now, but I mean that's who's driving Betfair. So, you know, they're not guessing, are they?
Well, to in my circle, I don't know if that Christian Strangeway, who's going to appear on a pod with me this week talking about betting, and Dan Gilbert, they are they're very large punters. In fact, they would be, you know, Dan's not frightened to have 20 grand on one, you know, plus obviously makes a very successful living, multiple horses. I don't know whether you class him in that, Garrett. I don't know.
I would think there's just guys routinely taking 6-figure positions on Betfair.
Yeah.
Like routinely.
Yeah, I can remember like Barton Bank on the Betfair forum. He was ultra shrewd. He would lay out positions like that, but he'd be backing 4 or 5 in a race, laying 4 or 5 in a race, that kind of thing. He'd be taking massive positions back in the day, but I don't know whether he is now. Probably not.
Actually, there's a good example here, right? So yesterday, Bay Bridge, 4-1, 7-2, painted all week. At the off, what did it go off? Did it go off 335 or something like that?
Yeah, it was very well backed on.
Right. Okay. So here's the question: how much money did it take to move that at the off to that price?
Yeah, be strong.
It's an absolute fortune it takes.
Yeah, strong. Very strong.
Like if you put 5 figures into the market at Royal Ascot, it would get snapped off you. You wouldn't move the market. So think how big those guys are. I would assume that's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful. Yeah. No, that's helpful.
Okay. Any other stories? Any other weekly stories? Anything we want to get off our chest before we want to Jimmy Lindley and round off the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, come on. We've had Bellewstown. Any Bellewstown stories, Garrett? There must be some.
Would you believe I've never been to Bellewstown?
Never.
No, it's too far of the country for me.
Well, all right. How far is whereabouts are you in Ireland?
Cork.
Cork. Oh yeah, you would be then, yeah.
And Cork Racecourse is like when there's a flat meeting on out there, there's just like no one shows up. They only like jump racing down this side of the country. So there could be any type of good racing on a flat card. There'd probably be 100 people out there. So
right, interesting. No, Bellewstown, we're planning as Barsters to attend on I think the 28th or 29th of September. To go over just for a couple of days and experience some Irish racing. You know, like provinces. I'm not really bothered about doing Leopardstown, but me and John are thinking about doing that.
Leopardstown, like I like Leopardstown Racecourse, but I mean it's completely overrated, isn't it? Because the standard of racing there is just like, you know, you could give or take it. So you know, if you didn't have Leopardstown over the door and you looked at the card, it's like it could be anywhere, isn't it? Yeah. And it's a shocking track as well. I mean, you're just always on the turn. There's so much hard luck stories there as well. It's not a great flat course. No, I don't particularly like betting at Leopardstown, to be honest.
No, the Curragh's good. I mean, because obviously I always watch for the wind at the Curragh, because that's when the front runners kick in, when the wind blows in the right direction. You know for a fact that if someone pinches a lead in Ireland, they ain't stopping. So I do like betting at the Curragh and looking at the front end of the market, front end of the pace, when the wind's in the right direction there. But yes, Curragh's generally a fair track otherwise also.
I've barely had a bet in Ireland this summer, which is just for whatever reason. It's just not happening. It just feels like it's lower grade stuff day to day, isn't it, in Ireland these days?
No, it's difficult for me. Obviously, I'm a tipster, also put out bets in the morning, and I've learned my lesson over the years not to put out potential Irish plot jobs, in the morning, because
they'll just stop them. Yeah.
it'll be 38 on the machine 5 minutes before the off. Okay, great show so far. We'll go on to Jimmy Lindley. Anything we've seen this week, chaps, that you think is a potential winner for our listeners? Obviously, I know you, Garrett. You wouldn't tell anyone that you've got something special because you want it for yourself. But we're all like that in a way, because that's what we do. But anything,
I will throw you one if you want. I mean, I don't think it's I don't think it's sorry. Nothing might come up, but that stay alert in the Haydock race that finished fifth, way too keen and didn't get the trip, I would think. That'll still be a nice horse when it's dropped to 10 furlongs, back to 10 furlongs.
Yeah, that's the Hugh Morrison one, yeah.
Yeah. He could have got a handicap mark with it on the third run, and he decided not to. It would have won 5 on the bounce if he'd got to the mark. Yeah,
stay alert. No, interesting. John, anything for you?
Very thin on the ground this way.
Very thin. I know. John, I'm waiting for your next Scizurka. That's what we're waiting for.
You'll make both. I need a fucking Scizurka.
We need a Scizurka. Okay, one for me that'll just piss off the friend of the show, Stuart Williams. Because I'm going to highlight his. It's one that ran at Thirsk on the 29th of June on, I think it was Wednesday. Enzo's Angel. Poor old Stuart had sent this one up to Thirst thinking, well, if we can have a little spin here and we can, just get this beat and, make it look good, and, we'll probably get off 66, 67. Sadly for Stuart, didn't quite go to plan because this horse was tanking just in behind the leaders in the straight, and old Jason Hart just didn't know what to do. Enzo's Angel is the horse. Ran in the 4:30 at Thirsk on the Wednesday last week. I would say, to me, it looks 80 to 85. It will probably get 73 if they're lucky, 75 if they're not. Stuart was thinking, rubbing his hands, probably get this in a 0 to 70 and maybe win 3 or 4. So, yeah, Enzo's Angel, I've just ruined it for the friend of the show. So if I get a DM saying, you cunt.
Along with all the others.
Yeah, I could just imagine Patrick Veach now thinking, look at you divulging every fucking thought in your head. You absolute idiot.
And Enzo's Angel, this could be Veach's. It's owned by Opulence Thoroughbreds, Regions Racing et al. Could be anyone, that.
What's it by?
Anyone.
So, sorry?
What's it by? What sire?
It's by, well, it's not, I don't think it's Lope de Vega, which we know good old Patrick likes. It's by Dark Angel.
Okay.
But it's, I mean, that they're not cheap. It costs 125,000 at the breeze up, and it could be, that sort of money could be Patrick.
When you stop recording, remind me to tell you something.
Okay. Right, Enzo's Angel. Anyway, sorry, Stuart. If you're going to stop listening and never come on again, I understand. But that's going on the Jimmy Lindley Lovely Hands list. Okay, we're back on Friday. We're not doing a July preview because it's shit. It's full of bad ground and bad watering from a bad Clark. So that's all from me, Gerard, John and Chris. Back on Friday. Bye for now.
Right, the show's over, boys. Thank you very much.